Hello, everybody. It's Alicia from Holistic. Welcome. Today I am here with my beautiful honored guest, Esmeralda, and good friend. I'm so happy to be here. So honored to share this space with you today alongside with Esmeralda. And we're gathering in honor of Spring Equinox. This is the time of renewal, rebirth, and really returning to the light. Spring holds this transformation energy of stepping forward into newness, new possibilities, and the trusting of the cycles that trusting of cycles of life that guide us. Esmeralda, I know that you're here with us and you'll be sharing your wisdom of rebirth and connecting, and you're also reconnecting with your ancestry you talked about. Is there anything you want to maybe open with or say right now?
Yes, I just wanted to say a quick hello. And if you've never met me before, I also run a Facebook group called Spiritual Ladies. And Alicia and I go back and forth between our two communities. We connected through a third community, a third person, Desiree Dunbar, the Secret Garden Society. We have her to thank to bring us together and spark this friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I have started running women's circles in person here in Brussels. I'm situated in Belgium, and I'm half Belgian, half Colombian, living with an Irish. So it's quite a mix of cultures. And when it comes to looking at deities, I have a wide range of options, which I was planning to talk about tonight, but I think I'm going to focus a bit more on my personal experience. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, thank you also for mentioning that it's nighttime where you are. It's just afternoon here, but it is nighttime out in Brussels. So, okay, so while Esmeralda's going to be talking about that, I'm going to be weaving in the medicine wheel and the spirit of eagle medicine. And eagle teaches us about vision and about seeing just beyond what's the immediate moment, and trusting the winds that carry us forward. So let's open our discussion, Esmeralda, and just talk about the rebirth and vision, the medicine of spring, right? Spring, it's often seen as this season of movement, right? The planting of the seeds, the stepping into new beginnings. What are your thoughts on that?
I just muted myself there, so I wasn't making any noise in the background while you were talking. Well, yeah, that's exactly the topic we covered yesterday in person in the circle. And we had a little exercise, which was in a way to bring to the material, not just envisioning what's the next chapter in our lives. Okay, let me take it back. So my interpretation of spring and renewal is it's a new opportunity to reinvent yourself. Mm-hmm. Our calendar year invites us to do a revision end of December and then set our intentions like beginning of January to define what our year is going to bring, 2025. But that's just one interpretation. There are other cultures in which actually the year starts even later, not on the 1st of January. And in astrology, it starts now. It starts at the spring equinox, as Aries, the astrological sign of Aries, starts on the 20th of March. Mm-hmm. That's when the astrological year starts. And so I always view this period as an opportunity to do all these sort of end of the year ritual and putting down intentions and objectives for the year that I didn't get around to in the winter, because the winter often calls for other energies. They're going inwards, sort of digesting and processing everything we've been through, and planting the seeds when the soil, the ground is hard, is actually not true. You wouldn't do that in nature, in agriculture. That was not the cycle. The seeds would get planted around the spring equinox. So for me, it makes more sense actually to do all of these processes right now. And that's why in the circle yesterday, that was the intention, was going through who would I want to be this year? Some people, they like to set a word for the year or a mantra, a sentence. But for me, I was inviting our group to think of, out of these different pantheons of goddesses that are associated with spring, some qualities that we would like to embody, or just more generally, who do I want to be in this next phase of my life? I keep talking about phases because I've turned 42 in October last year. And so I went from, if you take the triple goddess, thank you, archetype, you have the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And 42 places me somewhere between, still quite close to the mother matriarch. But I know perimenopause and menopause will be coming, and I know I am moving more and more towards those crone energies. And that's why I think it's so much in my speech, stages of life, phases of life, because it feels a bit like one of those, rites of passage time, like you have puberty and you have motherhood, etc. So anyway, I invited the group to have their own interpretation. Some chose to draw, and one of the participants, he left me with this beautiful snowdrop.
Oh.
And we started talking actually about this flower, because in French, she's called perce-neige, which means pierces through the snow. And I learned, because that's the beauty of collective groups, everyone brings in their wisdom, their knowledge, their life experiences. I learned that the snowdrop, this flower actually has her own temperature regulation capacity. So she's going to heat up the snow on top of her in order to come out. That's why she's the first flower to come out. I don't know how it is in Canada, but in Europe, I think in Canada as well. I think Desiree mentioned this flower. Can you see it? I could not draw it, but I think she's done a beautiful job. Snowdrop in English.
Yeah.
And perce-neige in French.
Yeah, that's I'm not big on plants. I mean, I love plant medicine, but I'm not like the planter. That's my sister's. So I'm like, I love plants and I definitely will forage, but I won't like be like, I'm growing them personally. I've grown lavender and rosemary, and that is it. I'm like, okay, I need those ones.
I think snowdrops, I guess you could just like crocuses and daffodils, all these spring flowers. I think you could, plant them. I don't know if they're also bulbs, like tulips and such. I think snowdrops are really more of a wildflower that would come up by themselves, and more originally forest type of flowers. So really, that's why I think it's wild. But I suppose you could plant it in your garden should you feel the urge to. But I thought it was really interesting they came up with that, because then we, because it was really a share that came from like one drew it. The other one mentioned also speaking French, how it was in French. And I brought in as well, because French is one of my mother tongues. And this idea of the temperature, that I didn't know. That's what Séverine mentioned. And I thought, that's beautiful, because in the Celtic tradition, what happened in February, Imbolc, is the season that starts with the goddess Bridget, who's you've probably seen tending the flame of Bridget. So she is associated heavily with fire energy, which is, again, the start of the season.
Yeah.
So that's why bringing in feminine archetypes can be very interesting to illustrate the energies of a season. So we talked about how Ostara, or Flora, the Roman goddess associated with the season, evokes what we think of when we think spring. We think fertility as the little bird babies come out, the cygnets, the ducklings. You see it in nature. I'm just mentioning those because there's a chance they might be all over the world. I cannot say what species specifically at this time appear everywhere, but I think those would. And so Flora and Ostara were associated mostly with that, with fertility. and also with youth, which brings me back to my conversation about how I don't feel like I'm close to the maiden anymore. But yeah, when we use the expression, and a person is in the spring of their life, they are in their youth time. So we started sort of waxing on these concepts, but really we each had our own definition of what we wanted to explore in this part of our lives. And I started writing a type of goddess that I wanted to be in my everyday life. And I asked myself, who would she be in all of these pantheons available to me? And I couldn't find an answer. And as I was sharing earlier with Alicia, it actually felt like that's okay, because I think the archetypes, they're there. Just like sometimes if you're wanting to journal and you don't know what to write, taking an oracle card can be very helpful because it will guide your writing. But at other times, it's just going to flow from your consciousness directly. And I was thinking, that's interesting. So for once, instead of having to look at a goddess to inspire what energies and qualities I want to call in, I knew what I wanted to become in this part of my life, and I could write it down. So it was really like, I invite this energy, and then she is like this, she's like that, based on what I felt I needed. And I thought that's really interesting to remember that we don't always have to look up at others. We don't always have to model something that already exists. We can tap into our own intuition, imagination, wisdom, give it the name that resonates with you. So I've already talked a lot.
Well, I love your sharing.
Thank you. You may hear that in my voice and in my chest, I feel a little bit tired. So I'm going to allow myself the pause, passing over to you, Alicia. And if it feels right, it resonates, I may read what I've written, or I may just explain what the main concepts were. Because when I read it in the group, it resonated with everyone, and then they brought in as well extra elements. So I had hesitated about reading it, and I was asked to read it, and it served. So let's see what is right here this time. But for now, I can tell I need to go quiet for a little bit.
Well, I love everything that you shared, and I especially love this theme of is autonomy and really trusting in yourself and your own wisdom, your inner wisdom. I really love that theme, like that you're bringing in, because it is important, right? Because we're like, yeah, let's look at what the oracle card says, or let's look at what the goddess card is, or what is Bridget's point of view, or Ostera, because that would have been the spring goddess, I guess, part of the pagan. So yeah, I think that's really beautiful, like really trusting in yourself. And I really like that. That is also, I think, a really good thing of medicine of spring, because we are talking about the cycles within ourselves, and we're planting new seeds for us and like yourself, your own new beginning. And, medicine wheel, it's actually all about clarity, and it's opening ourselves to the vision and trusting what's coming next. So I love this trust and this. So it is flowing. Absolutely. So I love everything you shared. So just talking a little bit more about eagle medicine, it really does align with this energy. Eagle soars high. Actually, eagle, of all the birds, the eagle can go the highest. So because of that, eagle is closest to creator, is what's taught traditionally by our elders. And so eagle can see the big picture. We can trust the clarity that comes when we rise above from noise, say even influence. And it doesn't even, it doesn't chase away, it doesn't chase every opportunity. It waits, it has its own knowing, and when to act and when things can unfold. And that's the beauty of eagle medicine, is this patience, this trust and clarity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I've already asked your perspective on the renewal, so thank you so much. I was going to ask again, but in my notes I was reading. As we really reflect on this, I want to just invite everybody here who's watching now or replay, what is being reborn in your life? Like, just asking yourself, what's being reborn in your life? What is calling renewal within you? And you're totally welcome to share that. Like, I think Esmeralda's shared that a little bit. Like, for myself, what's calling for renewal? I'm going to be honest, what's calling for renewal is more care in my body. So allowing that renewal to take place and I'll talk more about it, but I'm going to mention rest. That's what my calling is for, and my intuition. It's not even just my intuition, it's messages from others too. What's being reborn, I think there's just a more compassionate and a more care that's being reborn in my life. While you're writing that, I'm going to start some music because I want to just create like a little guided experience for us, all about Eagle and Eagle's vision and the medicine that Eagle brings. I'm going to start the music. Allowing yourself to settle. I'm not recommending you do this while you're driving because you would be distracted and you want to be safe. But you're welcome to do this even if you're at work or wherever you find yourself. So let's take a moment, embody this wisdom that we've talked about. And if you're at a place where you can close your eyes, you can go ahead. Taking a deep breath. Imagining yourself standing on the edge of a vast open landscape. Maybe it's like a cliff, so you can see everything. You can see the valley. You can see all this openness, all the terrain. Above you soars the eagle, effortlessly soaring above. It's carried by the wind. It trusts its path. I don't know about you, but I can hear the eagle cry. His voice, or her voice. So for me, eagle medicine is already coming in, bringing that energy here to you. You feel the energy of spring stirring within you. The excitement of something new is unfolding, but you're not rushing. You allow yourself to rise, to see the bigger picture, to see all that's in front of you. You trust the clarity will come, and you allow space for it. What vision is coming through for you? What is being reborn in your spirit? The invitation here is to take a moment and reflect on this. When you are ready, bring your awareness back, carrying this vision with you. Perhaps you'd like to journal it down while it's still fresh. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining me with that. I loved that. Just a small touch of Eagle's medicine, really. Just that little bit of taste and just the warmth of it too. Though I felt like the spring air, the freshness, I also felt comfort. Yeah, inviting you, if you felt anything that you want to share in the chat, you can absolutely do that. Yeah, I want to now just continue on with kind of what we've been leading up to. Really is this other side of renewal and the power of rest and what it is, right? Because we've explored this rebirth, this renewal, which is this, building and transformation, fiery energy. There is another side of the coin. Just as, eagle soars, it also knows when to pause, when to rest its wings, and wait for the right moment to move. Wait for the moment to take action. There's this misconception, I believe, that renewal is all about action. But really, true renewal, deep, lasting transformation only happens when we can honor both our movement and the stillness. And Esmeralda, we've talked a lot about this and how in our healing journeys, we often push ourselves, or well, then I'll do it. If no one, I'll do it. And just to prove that we're doing the work, and we prove it, of course, to ourselves and maybe to others. But what happens when we don't recognize this part in our healing? Did you want to speak to that?
Yes. For me, what is often present, sadly, as a driving force, are the concepts they're not concepts, they're feelings of shame and guilt. And when you mentioned exploring ancestral wisdom, for me, it was also looking at where it's coming from, those driving forces. And I would like to actually come back a bit to our meditation, because when it happened, had a lot more coming in. And even before the meditation, you said something about which I interpreted to be trust in divine timing. You said the eagle waits. It does not, it will wait until it has noticed its prey. It will calculate its movement, and the reason it does and doesn't just dive in at the wrong time, it will calculate very, very precisely when is the moment to attack, to start its dive. It's because it's sparing its energy, because in nature, the animals are very aware that they have a limited amount of energy available. So each hunt has to count. They have to push the most chances of succeeding. Otherwise, they may end up using up more energy and not achieving the kill. It's the same as well for wolves, and that's why they will attack, or lions, they will attack the weakest member of the herd. And somehow this wisdom is very present in the mammal world and in the animal world in general, and we are animals. Somehow we have forgotten about that wisdom of weighing in how much energy we have available versus our goal, and whether it's worth it, and what should we prioritize. And one of the reasons is sadly our fantastic brain, which marks us apart from some of these species, can also be our enemy in those moments. So, to give you one concrete example, last year I developed. I'm in a phase in my life, again, I come back with phases, where I'm reevaluating who I want to be and how I interact with my loved ones and my family, my friendships, but also my career. I decided to take a break to give myself time to explore who I want to be and what I want to do out of my day, how I want to show up to the world. And one of these ways was a partnership I developed to give free workshops on self-care, because it's been such an important element in my life. I had to take that break because I led myself to a burnout, a professional burnout, a family burnout. So for years, I hadn't been listening to the messages my body was giving me until it knocked loud and strong by causing me to be lying down for days and days with a strange illness of elderly people, actually, which is linked to your basis, your balance. So we have these little crystals in our ears. Every time we move, they readjust. And somehow they weren't able to do it anymore for me. According to my doctors, it was a case of stress and exhaustion. So, like old people, if I stood up, I could fall because I had no sense of balance anymore. And then the other thing is I would get nauseous. Even if I was lying down and I would suddenly turn my head, I would vomit. So it was quite an extreme way my body had to force me to lie down. I couldn't even keep foods and liquids in. So it was a good wake-up call, but don't think I listened the first time around. It had to come back 4 times in 2021 to really like make me like, okay, 2022 is time to reevaluate what I want to do with my life. So anyway, like I said, I've been in those 2-3 years, I've been exploring many methods of healing, taking care of myself, and then wanting to share them with others. One of the ways is in the Spiritual Ladies Facebook community, and also the workshops that I wanted to prepare. So in my head, in my moon in Capricorn that likes to be structured and organized, I said to Caroline, the lady from Silver Square, these co-working offices where I would give the workshops, that I was envisioning 5 or 6 workshops for the different type of self-care. So physical, spiritual, emotional, etc. And I thought that it would be great to start at the beginning of the year in January. Completely ignoring the fact that my experience as a mom of young children and myself someone with some health issues, that between September and March, we are going to be facing many either proper illnesses, like staying at home with fever, laying down, or just this sense that your body is weak and tired because it's constantly fighting something or recovering from something. And even though it had been like this ever since I had kids, somehow my ambitious self thought that, no, it'll be okay now. And so I kept pushing myself to commit to this, even though I wasn't ready. And interestingly, I follow astrology, and I heard really this invitation to only get started in spring, as I mentioned earlier, because it is the start of the astrological year, and I'm Aries rising, so it is my time. And again, the universe had to confirm me. I wouldn't listen to my intuition when sometimes you get these messages you're reading a book, you're listening to the radio or whatever, and it really felt right. But I had to have this extra confirmation because I contacted Caroline and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry, I'm aware that I should have sent you like a month in advance. The advertising for the workshop, the cycle, I haven't fully defined it. And she's like, don't worry. because actually we're doing renovation in the offices, and it won't be accessible until possibly April. And that was really my confirmation, like, okay, what my body was telling me, I wasn't allowing myself to listen. And thankfully, my angels and my guides, they love me, and they put it in the material world, an extra obstacle to make sure that I didn't push myself further, and made it happen even though it wasn't right for me. But it's because in my head I was thinking, yes, but these people, they need you. So if this is a hard period for you, winter, that means that's also a period when people need you. So why would you not be there? Why would you not be? They're needing to learn now those tools, and forgetting, like you said, that yeah, we don't have to be fully healed to be able to help others, but we shouldn't forget about healing ourselves as well. So
Yeah.
yes, trust and divine timing was a point that I wanted to bring in, and that ties into your question.
Beautiful. So I also want to touch on something really powerful that we discussed, healing and first and foremost ourselves. You're already bringing this to light. So just back to my notes. When often we frame our healing as something we do for our ancestors or future generations, I know I've done this very recently too. And while, yes, all those people benefit, all the relationships around us benefit, the truth is that our first responsibility is to heal for ourselves. So honestly, what you just said just brought that right home for me. So thank you so much, Esmeralda. Everything you're saying, it just always aligns. So yes, the truth is that we must heal ourselves first. And that's our first responsibility. Even as a mom, I'm not a mom, but even as a mom, mom has to be well to take care of the kids. Mom has to be well to take care of adult kids. Mom has all these things. And let's ask ourselves, are we giving ourselves permission to heal ourselves first? Or do we need to justify our healing to make it about others? I found myself in this place very, very, very recently with my diagnosis, that I had to heal for my ancestral line, both back and forward, that I was the chosen one, that I need to do this. As if it wasn't enough, why can't I heal for me? Why can't I heal so that I can have a healthy life? That's already big enough. So I found that this was a huge understanding, especially when we're talking about healing and healing for ourselves. And again, the thing about autonomy and trusting in ourselves, all of this really themes back. And I think it's a valuable question to ask ourselves. So I think all in all, Spring Equinox, it's really teaching us about a balance, right? There's a light as well as a shadow, a movement and a stillness. There is a rebirth, but there's also a rest. The medicine wheel itself, it actually reminds us that, every season has its own wisdom. And part of our journey is learning when we rise, when to act and when to pause. If today's experience has resonated with you and you want to go deeper inside of the medicine wheel, as guided journeying, I invite you to actually take advantage of a gift that I'm going to be presenting to you. I don't actually have a link for it yet. So bad on me. Taking a little bit too much time to rest because I'm recovering from illness, but not too much time, just enough time for me. So I'm going to be dropping in a link in the replay here, and it will be for you to access actually an entire Spring Equinox experience. What it is a ceremony for the Spring Equinox, and it is my gift to every one of you watching, and it'll be here in the Healistic community in the comments of the link. So if you are part of Spiritual Ladies, when this video gets posted there, I'm inviting you to join the group so that you can get this as well. So yes, this space has just been really deep integration and alignment with natural cycles and transformations. And that's really why I love to share this journey with you. Is there anything that you wanted to say before we close, Esmeralda?
Yes, I'd love to point out that this guilt and shame feelings that I mentioned that I have, I think they are present in everyone, and especially so in women, partly because that's how we've been conditioned. And I just heard you there being very humble, saying, "Oh, my bad, I don't have the link." And see how we apologize the same way I described it. I called Caroline like so ashamed, so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And when she had like no actual expectations, we're always projecting that others ask of us more than they actually do. It's ourselves, our own mind, our own brain that puts all these demands on ourselves. So I think that's also an interesting one to watch. In this season.
I was like,
exactly.
I needed that
That's
rest.
why I felt the need to point it out. Exactly. And likewise, like I was initially going to talk about Bachuay. I wanted to take the time to look up, so I can talk about my ancestry, but I don't know so much the mythology of Colombia. So I can explain the influence my grandmothers had on how I am functioning right now. But if I was to tie it in with the goddesses of the Colombian mythology, I wouldn't know sufficiently about it. And back when we planned this event with Alicia, I said, "Oh, this is the perfect excuse for me to go read a bit more about it." And that was my intention of the day. I hadn't planned anything out of today. Deliberately, I knew I was going to need to rest from yesterday, which was a long, beautiful experience, but a long day. And I thought I'll have plenty of time to do this research. And somehow I didn't find myself doing it in the day. And just before we entered the call, I was feeling again embarrassed towards you, Alicia, as I told you. But then as we proceeded through our talk, I realized that's okay, because we already, as you said yourself, you added in, we already contain so much wisdom, so much knowledge, and so much experience that we have enough material to share. We don't always need to go and look for more on the outside. And likewise, each person already contains, I think everyone who's going to be in this group, in holistic community or in spiritual ladies, they have already explored so much in the spiritual quest that we also can. Maybe spring for me feels like an invitation to stop going onto the outside and digging for more, and maybe trying to integrate a bit more, and trying to use and trust what I already know and what I already contain. So I would add that as an extra invitation. There's rest, and if rest means you're not going to do the research you had planned to do, like in my case, it's right. And also trust what you already have.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't, that's when we don't listen to our bodies. That's when we can't hear the request for for rest because of stress, for physiological needs like drinking, like eating. Yeah. So I think those are interesting energies to bring in. These new intentions for this spring, this renewal of ourselves, of the way we function. So more rest, more listening inside, and more trusting our own wisdom.
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that home. So yes, inviting us to reflect, where in our life do we need the renewal and where do we need rest? Thank you so much for sharing with us this space. Thank you, Esmeralda, for your beautiful wisdom. And it was everything that you brought forward. Your medicine was aligned. It flowed in so well. And you didn't even know what I had written in my notes. So I think this was beautiful. It's exactly how it should be. And I am so grateful for you. Wishing everybody, a powerful as well as a balanced, very balanced spring equinox. Thank you so much, everybody. And until next time, bye.